Okay, we are now on YouTube. Um, I'm putting on the chat the Dharma Friend link because there is a lot of new things that if you don't know, so just go inside and you can see a lot of teachers and teaching. Some of them in Hebrew, some of them in English, some of them with translation. And if you want to do donation, so inside the website you can find the link.
Is there anybody in our between the friends who knows who is Arabic mother speaking Arabic mother speaking language? His mother. Anybody who can translate to Arabic?
לא הבנתי את השאלה.
אם יש מישהו דובר ערבית מלידה בתוך הקבוצה שלנו.
דובר מלידה, אין לי מושג.
או מישהו שיודע מאוד ערבית שיוכל לתרגם חלק מהדברים.
אפשר אולי לשאול בקבוצה של נשים עושות שלום, שיש שם הרבה ערביות.
את יכולה, you can ask תמי.
תמי שלף, אוקיי.
תמי שלף, she knows.
Maybe it's time.
Yeah. Hi everyone, hi Geshe.
Hi.
Thank you so much that you are teaching us today. So you're ready for you and you're a co-host now.
Great. Okay, thank you. So let's start as always with some breathing meditation. Just be present, focusing on the breath. And then to let ourselves be inspired. Visualize that in the space in front of you sits the embodiment of all enlightened qualities that have been attained and that we ourselves can attain. Appearing in the form of the Buddha. Whose pure body is made of light. And who wears the saffron-colored robes of a fully ordained monk. Who's dedicated his life to the practice of the Dharma. Also remember that the Buddha, is inseparable from your personal Lama or your personal Lamas. And then think that you're also surrounded by all sentient beings for whose benefit we're here today. They're seated all around you, wherever there's some space. And all of them basically being the same in not wanting to suffer, not wanting to have unwanted experiences, and instead seeking lasting satisfaction. And let's remember that all their limitations, all their shortcomings, in the form of afflictions and harmful actions, are temporary, are not coming from the actual nature of their mind, but from their adventitious or temporary misperception of reality. And based on that understanding, let's first generate affectionate love for all sentient beings. A feeling of care, affection, closeness. And a sense that at some point in time they've all been extremely close to us. And then focus specifically on the endless sufferings that sentient beings experience every moment, while constantly creating causes for future suffering. And then let's generate great compassion for all of them, with a deep sense of affection that from the depth of our hearts wants them to be completely free from all these sufferings, these dissatisfactory experiences and their causes. At the same time, aspiring again from the depth of our heart to be able to protect them from all their dissatisfactory experiences and their causes. And that aspiration, that heartfelt wish, slowly turns into the special altruistic attitude that is now determined to use our precious human existence with all its freedoms and opportunities not just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of all these sentient beings. By doing our best, giving our best to protect them, helping them to overcome all their sufferings and that which causes these unwanted experiences. Try to generate deep courage and inner strength. Taking responsibility for the welfare of sentient beings in the form of the special altruistic attitude. But since right now we are, of course, very limited in what we can do for others, it's based on our great compassion, our special altruistic attitude, generate the mind of enlightenment, the aspiration or even determination to become fully enlightened in order to be of greatest benefit to all sentient beings, to be most effective in helping them to overcome their root misperception, their other afflictions, and in that way, all their unwanted experiences. And then think that it's also with that mind that we continue to study the 7-point mind training. But first take refuge and generate Bodhicitta once again through the prayer. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Okay, great. Then let's start right away. Oh, one thing before I forget, I have one announcement. I'm actually going to travel to London on the 12th, and I'll be there for 2 weeks. So I won't be able to have time. I won't be able to have class. We won't be able to have class simply because I'm going to be so busy. I thought I may be able to make some time, but I've got the itinerary today, Rinpoche's itinerary, and it's full on. So
You mean this next week and then the week after?
yes, and the week after. So that would be the
15, 22.
15th and 22nd, exactly. Yeah. So my apologies. I thought I could maybe fit it in, but it doesn't work. It won't work.
Can we attend your teachings online? Can we attend your teachings in London?
Okay, well, I'm going to translate first of all for Yangden Rinpoche. So you find the program on Jamyang, in the program of Jamyang London.
Jamyang, okay.
Jamyang, yeah, it's called Jamyang, and then London.
If you can send me the
Center.
link, I can publish it in the
Please. Perfect. And Rinpoche is a really amazing Lama. I mean, Yangden Rinpoche, I don't know, some of you may know him. He's truly amazing. So it's a great pleasure to translate for him. He's a wonderful scholar, Haramba Geshe in his own right, but also an amazing Lama, relatively young, and he teaches really well. It's truly joyful to translate for him and, well, to attend teachings by him. So if you're interested, he will teach the innermost jewel of the Kadam. So this fits really well in what we're studying right now. We're learning a text by a Kadamba Geshe Chekawa, teachings on mind training. So the Kadamba Geshes are known for their expertise in the teachings on mind training. That will be on his first day of teachings. I think they're on the 13th, I believe, 12th, I believe, yeah, 13th. And then he'll give on the next day, he'll give a Jenang, which I asked today, and it seems it's a hybrid event. You can attend this Jenang. There are 4 Jenangs of the 4 Kadam deities, or the 4 deities of Kadam. So if you're interested in taking this, it's just a Jenang. It's a Jenang, basically, Shakyamuni Buddha, Avalokiteshvara, Green Tara, and Achala. So those 4.
And thanks for being nice. They publish it now.
They published. Okay, great. Yes, and then there's also a teaching on the, I think it's on dependent arising, in praise to dependent arising. I believe there's one day planned for that. That may be the Monday. So I really recommend to connect to this amazing being. And then after Rinpoche is left on the 23rd and the 25th in the evening, I'll give a class on Bodhicitta, conventional and ultimate Bodhicitta. That's the plan so far. Okay, so let's start with class. I still thought about, thank you, Sneh, you posted it, I just saw it. Also, I'm still thinking of B's question. It stayed with me throughout this week because, well, her question was, of course, being part of a country and part of the government of that country. Do we have personal responsibility or not? But I thought about it also in terms of the food we do eat, the clothes we wear, right? I mean, like, what kind of clothing are we wearing? Am I wearing clothes that are relatively cheap, but they were, I don't know, produced by some workers in Bangladesh who live under the worst kind of living conditions or working conditions that are being exploited, etc. So in a sense, I mean, that, of course, and then the food I'm eating, is it food that because of this food is being grown, it deprives other people of water, or, it destroys the Amazon and so forth. I think we really have a personal responsibility here to the best of our ability to try and find out, and then make an informed decision as much as we can. It's all part of, living and being part of this global community. But of course, it can become obsessive, and if we don't have all the time in the world to do it, then of course there's limits to it. But I think we can take it further and just be responsibility. But that's common sense, we all know, basically. But the question, is there non-virtue? Yeah, it's quite difficult because on the other hand, for instance, if I kill someone because I drive a car and I drank too much, of course there's non-virtue. I mean, of course there's non-virtue due to that. But if I haven't done anything wrong, I've driven carefully, I'm not intoxicated, I've I've been attentive, etc., and I killed someone unintentionally, the scriptures are quite clear that there's no non-virtue. I mean, I didn't have the motivation, of course, most importantly, but also I was really careful. I couldn't have done any better job. Well, I could have been, and I could have become already enlightened and be clairvoyant, but no. I mean, just from a worldly point of view, there's actually not said to be any non-virtue. So that we can also apply, I guess, to other situations when we have no knowledge. There's no way we can find out that we, I don't know, somehow supported some kind of mafia in Colombia or wherever because of the food we eat, etc. Okay, I just wanted to mention that. Okay, anyway, going back to the Lamrim. So it's part of the Lamrim teachings we always start a class with. We're still with Bodhicitta. We've spent quite some time on that, which is beautiful. It's so important. Okay, now I don't think I need to add anything to these two techniques of generating bodhicitta. Of course, now it's time to practice those two, and I've already mentioned in the past to combine those two techniques. One is equalizing and exchanging self and others, or self with others. On different steps. If you still have questions about them, well, there's enough material definitely in the Lamrim texts. And then there's, of course, the 7-point mind, the 6 causes and 1 effect. So recognizing all sentient beings have at some point been really close to us in the form of our mother or another sentient being, remembering the kindness, wishing to reciprocate or wishing to repay that kindness. And then, of course, great compassion, etc. But here, the way it's described, it's really this combination of bringing the two techniques together. And that's important because initially they're explained separately for the sake of better understanding them. They were initially practiced separately, but there's no harm. And in fact, there's great benefit if we practice them together. So it's recommended to practice them together. So, okay, I've talked about this before, past and future lives. It's not easy, but to allow the possibility. And then if there's just a sense of, okay, it kind of makes sense to really make the time to sit down and think, well, if there is past and future lives, then this life is just so short. And the way we identify as male, female, Westerner, Asian, whatever is our sense of identity, it's only for those few years in this lifetime. So, for instance, feeling, oh, male, I'm a woman, I feel so much, I'm totally in support of all women in this world. But if just in my last life I was a man, well, then I very much identified with all males. So to get a sense that we hold on to our identity so strongly, but it's just for a short life. And to take it further, our relationship with others. I mean, the people who we were really close to in this life may have been some people we really didn't like, or those we really don't like may be the people we were married to, or they may have been our children. So to really get a sense of that fluency, of that constant change of relationships being so different. I mean, even within one lifetime, we meet people, we don't like them at first, and later on they become our best friends. And our best friends at some point, due to some I don't know, disagreement, they become the person we most dislike and so forth. I mean, there's this constant change. And if there's reincarnation, there's no limit to the relationships we had with everyone. And if you just go through this, if you sit with this thought for some time, even if you've intellectually already accepted that, but sitting with it and really getting a sense of how in this life I may be born into a Jewish family, in the previous life I may have been born into a Muslim family, in the life before that I may have been born into an atheist family, and so forth. I mean, like, it's constantly changing, it's constantly different. Our relationship with others are constantly different. It's really helpful just for our attachment to who I am, to the strong attachment. I'm this, and this is me and us, and that's everyone else, kind of the sense of, partiality. It's much more of a sense, well, I've had any kind of relationships with everyone, so it's much easier to connect with others. I mean, I just don't remember, but whoever there is, maybe thousands of years ago, they were my children for maybe a few lifetimes. So to think how close you are, or the closeness you feel towards your children now, you felt towards all sentient beings at some point. I mean, if there is reincarnation, there is no other way. Logically, it totally makes sense. But to just rationally understand it is not enough. We need to internalize it until it becomes part of a deep inner feeling. And it's those feelings that govern our actions. It's those feelings that help us to generate other feelings, such as love and compassion and so forth. And these are positive feelings. Oh, yeah, we've been connected to everyone. Oh my gosh, they've all been so close to us. So if you meet someone on the street, wow, I just don't remember, but this person, in some form or another, maybe as animals or as humans, and as humans also limitless times, they've been extremely close to me. I don't remember, they don't remember. So in that way, to internalize that and get a sense of, we've been everything to everyone. And then it's much easier to focus on the positive as well. First of all, get that sense at some point everyone was really close to us. And of course, think, well, now I have the opportunity to repay that kindness by developing my mind and hopefully be a good example to others to do the same, which is what Dharma practice is all about. I mean, helping others to basically also transform their mind. So having said this, going through these, so equanimity, recognize all sentient beings have been our mother, remembering the kindness of others and wishing to repay or reciprocate that kindness. This is the practice where you focus more on the past, focusing on what was. But it's helpful just in terms of reincarnation. And we have a tendency, I don't like this, I have a problem with reincarnation, I have a problem with this practice, so I won't do it. Yeah, for some time you can get away with it, but sometimes it's good, just because we don't want to do it, to pay extra attention to it and find out why is it we don't want to do it. And maybe there's a gap in our practice if we don't consider that idea and, explore it a little further. But on top of that, to also engage in the practice of equalizing and exchanging self and others. So here, the order that is presented here, it could also be switched around. But since you start off with a past, well, first equanimity, of course, and we've gone into equanimity. We spent some time on equanimity a few weeks ago or even a month ago. And then next, you consider basically what was in the past, so recognizing all sentient beings as having been one's mother and so forth, all the way to reciprocating that kindness. And then, of course, equalizing self and others. What is the disadvantage of self-centeredness right now, the advantages of cherishing others, and of course, then actually equalizing self and others. So what about equalizing in the sense of their happiness is equally important as mine, in the sense that their happiness benefits me. And having just focused on my own happiness, I've just harmed myself over, endless lifetimes. And so to see that others' happiness is equally important, and even go as far as switching it around. Now my main focus is on the happiness of others. And so when I come to this conclusion, I go through the rest: affectionate love, compassion, the special altruistic attitude, or here it's described of giving our happiness through love, great determination, and altruistic attitude or altruistic intention. And then lastly, bodhicitta. Okay. So this is your practice, the two together, bringing the two together. And for next time, we talk more about taking the vow, which is actually preceded by, and I can maybe just mention this, doing the ritual of bodhicitta. Now, we know a lot about the rite of taking the Bodhisattva vow, that kind of ritual in front of a lama, where there's certain prayers are said and you take the vow. But even before that, there's also a ritual of just generating bodhicitta. So you can do it, of course, on your own, generate that mind. And of course, right now, we don't have fully qualified bodhicitta, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't practice it. I mean, the more we practice this, the more we familiarize with this practice, and it gets easier with that. This is a kind of practice where familiarity is most important versus understanding. It's not that hard to understand, but we need to generate it again and again and again, and just do it. Just do it. If you do it, I don't know, 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening, and even time and again in between, it'll come easier. It becomes easier and easier and easier, and it'll pop up on its own naturally. So we just need to allow ourselves for that familiarity to grow. But on top of that, if we have the chance to take bodhicitta, not the vow, but just bodhicitta itself, and I'll talk more about it next time, but just to take the vow, sorry, not to take the vow, but just to generate bodhicitta in the setting, for instance, in the presence of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It happens many times during His Holiness's teachings, so that he goes through the ritual of just generating bodhicitta. So with tens of thousands of other people, you generate the mind of enlightenment and repeat a few words. It's just that kind of ritual that helps us to be mindful. That's the whole purpose of a ritual. It's not to just go through the motions and kind of be half asleep. No, to be mindful of what is being said. And in that way, it helps us to keep focused on, well, what's relevant in that moment. Okay, and here in this case, help us to generate bodhicitta together with everyone else. Okay, and that holds some special force. Okay, anyway, so that's enough for the mind of enlightenment. No, sorry, for the practice on Lamrim. So here it's the continue to practice the mind of enlightenment, but also possibly considering the possibility of taking, unless we've already taken it, taking in the form of a ritual from a highly advanced Lama, from a highly realized Lama, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to actually not take the Bodhisattva vow, one of the Bodhisattva vows, the different vows, but rather to generate bodhicitta with everyone else. Okay, we could maybe even do it using a recording. It's better if it's live, but you don't have the opportunity to do it live. You could do it, now, and kind of do it a little later, basically, but go through the ritual with His Holiness with a recording. Okay, so that should be enough for today on the Lamrim, and then we'll continue with the text. Okay. Now I've gone through the different steps, and I'll do it every now and then. I'll repeat what we've gone through. It's just been a few days. I don't think I need to go through everything now. So what we've been going through so far is presenting our practice, or the presentation of a lifetime's practice. So what should we practice in this life? We've heard about the 5 powers, the 5 powers during our life, and the 5 powers at the time of our death. So in preparation, our life, leading a life of a virtuous life, generating love, compassion, and so forth. So here it's explained in the form of the 5 powers. Of course, it could be explained differently as well. But yeah, so here the 5 powers are explained in preparation for our own death. And then, of course, at the time of death, the 5 powers, again, the practice of the 5 powers in a slightly different way. Okay, so having done this, so I don't want to get caught in the review on it, because then I usually spend more time than I intended. So let's start with the next point. Altogether, there are 7 points. Okay, so the 7 points, to just mention the points and nothing else. First, we went through the preparation. So the preliminaries, the basis, we've gone through those. Then the training in Bodhicitta, the awakening mind, which is really the main practice, and all the other practices are for the purpose of training in Bodhicitta, or as it's called here, the awakening mind. Then we've heard about taking problems onto the path of enlightenment. In other words, to not avoid problems, but instead to take any opportunity, positive or negative, as an opportunity to practice the Dharma. And that means also our everyday kind of troubles, our worries, our challenges, all the suffering around us. Everything is used, everything is utilized for our Dharma practice. And then the next point is presenting a lifetime's practice. In summary, how should we practice in one life? And that has been explained by way of the 5 powers we've gone through now twice. Okay, the next, and those last 5, 6, and 7, they are the most extensive points that we're going through, or the most extensive points of this text. So number 5 is the measure of having trained the mind. So in a way, it's a measure for having trained the mind so far, but it also at the same time gives us instructions on how to train the mind. All right. So first of all, to understand the intent of all teachings, that the intent of all teachings converges on a single point. So to understand that one of the intents, the main intent, if you want, of all the teachings, it converges, it comes down to a single point. What is that single point here? The single point is the understanding that all our problems, all our sufferings come from our misapprehension of reality. So it's basically saying emptiness. Here, Geshe Chekawa, the author of this text, is saying, well, be aware that all teachings that the Buddha has given was directly or indirectly to understand that the root cause for all our trouble, for all sufferings, and for all our shortcomings, all our faults, all our mistakes is that root misapprehension. That is extremely important to understand. Well, first of all, to understand that it's really just that. I mean, in the sense that we don't hate ourselves, for instance, for all our shortcomings. Understanding that it's that relatively simple misapprehension. It's not easy to get rid of it. Well, it's easy, but what makes it difficult is our misapprehension. That's in the way. And the longer it is, the harder it is, the stronger it is, the stronger that misapprehension, that ignorance, that misperception of reality is, the harder it is, of course, to overcome it. And it takes some time. But to understand that, well, we can't help it. Self-cherishing or self-centeredness. Sometimes we're in denial because we just feel ashamed and we just don't want to look in the mirror. I mean, using, for instance, mindfulness, the mirror of mindfulness, to see all this mess our mind is creating. But let's face it, as long as there's that root misapprehension of all phenomena, self-cherishing is a given. Self-centeredness is a given. There's no way you can overcome self-centeredness without overcoming that root misperception. And in that way, not only does it help us to understand why we have these shortcomings and these faults, etc., without generating hate towards ourselves. On one hand, it does that, but it also encourages us to find out, well, how do phenomena really exist? And there's so many ways to research that, to discover that. It's so fascinating. There's so many different ways, and I don't need to go into this in great detail here, but even though the text mainly deals with love and bodhicitta and so forth, which is so important, and we should focus on that, but we should never lose sight of emptiness, of the object that we're trying to understand here in order to overcome that single point. So all teachings converge on a single point, on generating the antidotes. All teachings are intended to be a direct or indirect antidote to that misapprehension. I mean, even love and compassion are an antidote to that ignorance, that wrong perception or that misperception of reality. And so we should learn about it as much as we can and then apply this. I mean, I talked about this in the beginning of class. Your own sense of identity. I'm Israeli, I'm Jewish, I'm American, I'm German, I'm Buddhist, I'm this, I'm that, whatever is the sense. And get in touch with our sense. There's something within me that makes me female. I'm totally like, I'm on the side of all women, etc., or whatever it is, our sense of identity. And just having us, just considering the possibility we've lived as males, as Muslims, as Christians, as atheists, as Buddhists, as Hindus, as anything, which already allows us to let go of that skin we basically create us mentally around us. My skin of being male, this skin. I mean, it's almost like an extra skin. It's our mind. It's like an extra layer we create. We create all these layers. And they're mental creations in the end. They just have to do with our thoughts. They're merely labeled. But it feels much more than that. It feels like a solid layer. A layer that is a part of me, that is my nature. And that's, again, this kind of like my nature. It's intrinsic within me. Nothing can change that, right? That irrational sense that's almost subconscious. Nothing will change that. I'll always be a woman. I'll always be this. I'll always be that. And so considering all these lifetimes we've had, that already kind of loosens that sense. But of course, emptiness is an even more powerful means to do that. I mean, considering many lifetimes is really a consideration of impermanence. So we're reflecting on impermanence, how our constant change over many lifetimes, but even from moment to moment, does not allow for such a solid sense of identity, for that sense of being a concrete this, that, and the other. Concretely, I don't know, having a certain nationality, a certain gender, a certain religion, and so forth. So, therefore, it's impermanence on one hand, but even more so, emptiness. Understanding that we have a sense there's something intrinsic in things. So sometimes the examples that are used most, I mean, usually, not sometimes, usually the examples that are used most frequently is, of course, the self. Try to find your own self, try to find your own I. And then objects are used, such as cars and trees and tables, our favorite, chariots, or cars, really, chariots in the olden days. Nowadays it's cars. So objects we're very familiar with, we've seen a lot, taking them apart and looking for something intrinsic that we see in them. But sometimes it's also helpful to use other things, such as, well, a very favorite of mine is, for instance, names or words. Our sense that there's something intrinsic in a word. It holds an intrinsic meaning. I'm not denying the conventional meaning of a word, right? Of course, words have a conventional meaning, but this meaning is also merely labeled onto them, or it's merely, what's another word? Merely labeled, merely designated. It's merely designated on them. So taking names, we've done that game before. I've asked you, give me a really conservative name. What is a really, I think it was like some say Shoshana. What is a really conservative Hebrew name? Like really a name you would not give to your child. I'm not talking about the names that are now fashionable again, but like totally, like no way you would call. I think my niece is called Ziva. Ziva, it's a Hebrew name, right? My sister chose a Hebrew name, and I've been told it's a very conservative name. It's a very old-fashioned, not conservative, very old-fashioned name.
It's
Is that right?
old-fashioned, yeah.
Yeah, very old-fashioned. So you wouldn't call your daughter Ziva, right? Not at this point in time, unless some famous singer's daughter was called Ziva. I don't think anyone would call her, right? So it's interesting. And of course, in many situations, I tell people this funny story. When I was in a restaurant with a friend of mine and I wasn't hungry, and I went through the menu and I saw this dish, and I wasn't thinking in that moment that this is actually a dish. And I said, oh, that sounds so pretty. If I had a daughter, I will call her that. And that was shakshuka. Shakshuka. Right? I saw the menu shakshuka. And I was like, oh, that sounds so pretty. I would call my daughter shakshuka. I don't even like shakshuka, to be honest. I don't like it that much. I had it many times. A lot of people bought me shakshuka after that. It's not my favorite dish. But the point is, it's ridiculous. It's like, I don't know, you wouldn't call your children, I don't know, noodle soup or hummus or something. But in some cultures, it may just happen to be a name, right? So we have a sense in each word, there's an intrinsic meaning, old-fashioned or not, fashionable or not. Just take names, take certain words. We no longer refer to people with mental problems as insane. But a few hundred years ago, it was perfectly fine to talk about someone who had mental problems. So now it's taken on that negative, it seems inherent in that word. So we change the word, no longer use that. And that's totally acceptable because it's taken on such a negative connotation now. We change the word, which is fine. But there's a sense of, what I'm trying to get at, it's something intrinsic in the word. What about fashion? Right? A certain fashion. What was fashionable? What is fashionable this year? It's like, oh, I want this. There seemed to be something intrinsic in the shape of this jeans, right? I don't know, some famous model is wearing it and all these pretty people are wearing it. So I want it. And then 4 years from now, I'm like, oh my God, I can't see it. It makes me, I don't want this. It's so unfashionable. Cars the same. We have this super modern car, and then 10 years from now, we're embarrassed to even have it parked on our driveway. We may just, hide it in our garage or whatever. The point is, these are all good means. These are good methods to recognize ourselves. There's something intrinsic in being fashionable or not, and the fact that it changes relatively quickly shows us it's just labeled. It's just labeled. So these are all examples we should spend some time on. Recognize in yourself your sense of concrete, I'm this. These are my children, and they're always going to be my children. Well, if there's been past life, they've just been your children for a short time. Think about it. Short time. It's nothing, right? They've been someone else's children, and someone on the other side of the world, they were your children in your previous life, and so forth. And really go through these meditations. Okay. So anyway, the intent of all teachings converges on a single point, understanding this. All right. So that is important. Let's not lose focus of emptiness. So important and so beautiful. And once it's understood to a certain degree, so much makes sense. So much makes sense. And it definitely becomes easier to reduce self-cherishing. To at least reduces, and a little bit reduction means reduction in suffering, reduction in fear, in worry, and so forth. So it's totally worth it. Then, so that's part of the measure of having trained the mind. So to understand this, all teachings converge on being And understanding that is a measure of having trained the mind, that it all comes down to emptiness. Okay. The second one is that of the two witnesses, we uphold the principal one. So that's important to do. And of course, if we're able to do it, that's a measure of having trained the mind. What are the two witnesses? And which one is the principal one? Well, the two witnesses are, number one, others. And here we're not talking about our lamas. We're not talking about, highly realized masters. No, we talk about other people, the people we hang out with, the people we're close to, the ordinary people we spend our life with. That's one witness, and the other is ourselves. So witness of our spiritual progress. Now, how would that work? Well, usually if you're a Buddhist practitioner, if you just do the practices and you slowly change your mind, well, oftentimes you're part of maybe a sangha. And if not that, I mean, if other people will probably notice the change, even if there's just a slight change. But hopefully, if it's done in the right way, people may notice you're calmer. You don't get angry as quickly. You can let go a little, more resilient. I mean, that's actually scientifically proven that the more a person engages in Dharma practice in the form of mindfulness and transforming the mind through love and compassion, the more resilient they become. So in the face of problems, etc., yes, there's a moment of, oh no, but you rise from that feeling of despair, that feeling of depression. You rise much easier. You get back to your normal kind of state of mind that is much more hopeful, much more positive. So, therefore, other people are witness of our practice. And we're witness of our own practice. So, others and ourselves. Who is more important? We ourselves. Because we could be good actors and actresses, be like this, oh, such a good Dharma practitioner, I mean, we want to be seen that way. I mean, like as a Dharma practitioner, as monks and nuns, I mean, of course, we need to appear in a certain way, and we don't want to come across as these worldly beings, though I am. I'm not saying others are. I'm a totally worldly person, but I want to come across, and it's actually a kind of an obstacle, because people who know around here, like, they know I'm a Buddhist nun, so they want to be, when they talk, they usually don't talk to me if they're not Buddhist, because they think they have to talk to me in a very spiritual way. They don't know how to do it. So they rather not say anything. Sometimes I talk about the weather, and then they're like, and I'd like to talk about the weather. Why not? And they're like, it's not probably something you concern yourself with. That's really boring. One of my classmates once wrote me an email and said, I'd like to be in touch, but I never know what to say in front of you. I don't know all the things that you're thinking about. Like, we don't talk about that all the time. Like, I mean, anyway, never mind. It's a whole different story. But the point is that, of course, we want to come across in a certain way, etc. And people may think we're good practitioners, but we are our best witness. I mean, of course, we could be in denial about it, but that's also extremely important. This honesty. I mean, to not pretend, if we can, to be as honest as we can. And here, honesty doesn't mean we don't sometimes speak white lies. I mean, if someone wants to kill another person and we know where this person is hiding, we don't give them away. We tell the person who's out to kill them, no, they're not there. So that would be a lie. But it's a white lie. It's not the kind of dishonesty we are trying to avoid here now, but an honesty towards ourselves. First of all, okay, where are my weaknesses? Do I have to hide them or not? Why not just be honest about them? It's such a relief, because being dishonest about it, it means you have to always live this lie, basically. The first step, of course, to be honest towards ourselves. Okay, let's face it. Okay, the good and the bad. It's very much also part of overcoming self-hatred. To watch our mind, to be more aware of what's going on in our mind as part of our practice of mindfulness, and to be accepting. It's okay, whatever there is. When it's negative, there's room for improvement. I mean, that honesty, first towards ourselves, is so important. It's like without it, you're just fooling yourself and others. You're not going to get anywhere. So, of course, it's not easy. I guess one of the first steps is to be less busy, because it needs some quiet and some absence of stress where our thoughts just run wild. We don't even know what's going on, but rather to have that space to ourselves and to really watch what's going on without judging. And afterwards, then to check, well, what are the negative aspects? What are the positive ones? The negative ones, there's room for improvement. And to be honest to ourselves. And when we're honest to ourselves, we can be honest to others. We can just be ourselves. We don't have to pretend. And it gives an incredible self-confidence. That's one issue. We all struggle, especially at this day and age. A lot of people struggle with self-confidence, which is the absence of self-confidence. But if we're honest to ourselves, honest when it comes to our limitations, okay, that's my limit. I wish it would be different, but it is this way right now. I need to accept it right now. There's room for improvement. Of course, it can change. It just takes time. And so having accepted that, then I'm okay with myself, my limitations, of course, I'm also not just focusing on my weaknesses, but also on my strength. So then my self-confidence comes from the fact that my negative aspects, I don't need to hide them. Why would I hide them? Others have them too. Others may relate to me better if they know I have them too. Then there's room for improvement. I can change them. They're not written in stone, like unchanging. No, they can be changed easily. So from that perspective, I don't need to hide. The negative aspects I can change. And the positive ones, we can all make a list of our positive qualities. And here the positive qualities are, of course, the ones in terms of the Dharma. Being generous, being kind, being patient to a certain degree. And we can be proud of that. So recognizing that as well. And then in our interaction with other people, we recognize our faults, we recognize our positive sides. So why not have self-confidence? There's so much good there. And what we admire in other people, well, we have either to the same degree or maybe, well, of course, maybe not to the same degree, but we can all reach that same state. And here admire other people. I'm not talking about the super rich, the super selfish, who through selfish means and ruthlessness have amassed a lot of money. No, the ones, well, we usually consider to be objects of admiration, great spiritual practitioners, for instance, great charisma with like someone like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who brings happiness just being present. Just their presence, people feel a sense of joy and inner peace. So understanding we can all do this gives us this self-confidence, but we have to be honest. We have to be a true witness to our own practice, to our own progress on the path. So let's not rely on others. They don't see us fully. If they criticize us and they call us this, that, and the other, and it's not true, well, it doesn't make it true just because others criticize us. So criticism is so much easier. I mean, who cares? When someone criticizes me, telling me something that is true, well, then thank you for pointing it out, right? I mean, it's good that they point it out again. I wasn't aware of it, or was in denial of it, or I've forgotten. If it's not true, well, who cares they said it? Who cares? It wasn't true in the first place. So in that sense, we're much more protected with that honesty towards ourselves, with that understanding of who we are, greater self-confidence, greater resilience, and criticism, who cares, right? I mean, we start slowly, but you'll see after some time, doesn't matter. Okay, then cultivate constantly the joyful mind alone. All right. So it basically says constantly be joyful, but that needs to be explained. It needs to be explained. Here, joy. What does that mean? Joy. Kind of like, I don't know, jumping up and down. I'm so joyful. I'm so excited. No. That's not the kind of joy that is encouraged here. It's actually a sense of inner peace and satisfaction, a sense of inner peace and calm. That is a type of mind that is really important. Now, I've been told during some of my visits in Israel, and this is not just true for Israelis, this is true for many people in the world, but a sense of I cannot be happy in the face of so much suffering around me, right? Feeling guilty of being happy when there's so much suffering in the world. Does that sound familiar? I've heard it time and again. I'm not saying everyone feels that way, but yeah, a sense of it's not right if others
I
suffer.
don't think so. It's maybe for this time because what's happening, but in daily life and usually, I don't agree.
Okay, no, it's good. If you don't have it, then very good. But I've been told by someone on a few occasions talking to people, and it was put across in such a way, well, we feel, I don't know whether this person really reflected others, but after the Holocaust and, after many conflicts, the sense, how can I be happy if there's so much suffering? Maybe I'm totally wrong about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some.
I don't know. We are in the Galil Ma'aravi, in the area where I live in Israel, in the kibbutzim.
The Golan Heights?
No, it's in the Galil.
Galileo, okay, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
West Galil.
Mhm.
So most of our kibbutzim is kibbutzim that people that survived the Holocaust.
Okay.
They build it, and they build it with a lot of
Mm.
joy, a
Mm.
lot of believing people, a lot of
Okay.
happy mind,
Mm.
created mind, and
Okay.
a lot of things.
All right. Then
And
I may have just
sentence is like, not to forget, but not to let it, how do you say, cover yourself.
very healthy, actually, because if you allow that the whole past and what happened during the Holocaust to eat you alive, then you're really giving in to what the Nazis did. So in a way, it's like, yeah. But anyway, so I may have misunderstood, or was there someone saying something? Yes, please.
I agree with you. When we were practicing the new name when the war started,
Mm-hmm.
then I could feel from time to time there is this inner peace or joy, and then the next moment is how can I feel that when the airplanes and everything is going around. So yes, I agree.
Right. Okay. So yeah, there may be for some people, there may be, yes, if you feel really happy in a moment, like, yeah, I can actually also certain times you feel like, oh, but can I not give that happiness to others? Do I deserve this, etc. But actually, from a Buddhist point of view, it's an incredibly important state of mind because Buddhist practice is only really effectively possible if you have that inner calm and joy. Because if you have that inner worry and fear and depression, it's so much harder. And of course, then through Buddhist practice, it may actually, if you do too much, it may strengthen that sense of, I don't know, depression or unhappiness. And in the sense, you can't help it, but you feel Buddhist practice has made it worse. So I better keep away from it, stay away from it, right? So therefore, I have a sense that there are certain cultures who are for whom Buddhist practice is very effective. Tibetans and Australians. Why? And there are others as well, but I'm just a sec, B, yes, it's good that you raised your hand. Just a sec, I just finished this. So I'm saying Tibetans because they're really laid back, and for the same reason, Australians. They're very laid back. So when I say joyful, it refers to not just a sense of inner peace, but also this kind of like feeling laid back, of like whatever, like calm and not easily excited or upset, etc. And I'm not saying every Australian is like that, but just in general, right? So you have already like an inner calmness, an inner peace. Yeah. But of course, to continue to work on that state of mind. Okay, B, please go ahead.
I've been listening to teachings from other lineages, and I seem to get the impression, which kind of sound radical in the Gelug tradition, that our natural state of mind is just natural without superimposition of anything of any kind. Is actually naturally joyful and blissful.
Yes, I would agree. Did you get the impression that wasn't the case?
From the Gelug point of view, I'm not sure, but it's not emphasized so much.
Okay.
Many years ago, I was really craving for Dharma, and I went to this center nearby me where there was a group of Austrian students gathering, and so the teacher was actually teaching in German.
Okay.
I didn't care that I didn't understand the teaching. I just wanted to sit in the Gompa and be among the people, the students.
Okay.
So I went there prepared with a list of the 35, the name of confessional Buddhas. I say, I'm going to sit there and try to memorize the list. So for about 2 hours, that's all I did. I just repeated the names over and over again, trying to memorize them.
Okay.
And when the session ended and I stood up, it was this weirdest, I wouldn't even say, I don't know how to call it. It was just a very pleasant, joyful, blissful feeling. I wasn't thinking about any particular thing that would lead me to feel that way, but I just felt it. And it lasted for like about 15 minutes and then it gradually subsided. I think when we talk about happiness, that is true happiness.
Very good, very good. I totally agree. I think you described it beautifully, that sense of no worries, what usually concerns us, it's all gone. It's just that inner peace. And I think it could have been the presence of the Lama who gave I feel like that in the presence of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Even when I'm in Germany in my mom's living room, and it's, I don't know, 4 o'clock in the 4 o'clock in the morning in Germany and like 8 in India. And India is far away, His Holiness is far away, but just being with my laptop there, it gives me that sense of inner peace, even the night before it. So it's the presence of these lamas. They can actually, and this is something Geshe Dorje Damdul has mentioned on many occasions. He used to teach at the IBD, at the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics. He was a teacher there for a few years before he started becoming the director of Tibet House. And so he was my class teacher for a while. And he spoke about it. I remember on one of those occasions, he said that the lamas can, of course, not transfer their realizations on us. We all know the sutric quote, they can't wash away our negativities, etc. But they can give us a taste. That's what the lamas can do. So if you come to a teaching, in this case here, you don't understand the language, the Lama can give you a taste of it. And sometimes it's maybe better not to understand the words and starting to intellectualize and, get caught up in your own thoughts, but to just open yourself to this presence, right? And you've done that in that moment. And it's exactly that. That is exactly that. So it may be emphasized different in different traditions. I don't know. I'm most familiar with the Gilok tradition, but that's something I'm very familiar with. I mean, from the presence of my teachers, from my classmates, who were all Tibetans and had already, many of them had studied already in Tibet, etc. So maybe it's just something I got through the whole culture. I don't know. But it makes so much sense. So much sense. So to discover that inner peace and to try and hold on to it, not in an obsessive, attached way, because that just leads to more worries. And of course, that's not what we're trying to do. But if you find it, you find it, and then when it disappears, find back. I mean, try to discover it back, like return to it and rest in this. Rest in this. And then your practice, I believe, will be more effective, because when this inner peace is gone, all you need to do is to see, oh, let me check. What is it in my mind? Which affliction is there? Because really, when you have that inner peace and calm, and yeah, there are worries, of course, there's life, there's samsara, but it doesn't really touch you. You have like an armor around you, which in this case, armor is often used in the form of like the motivation, but using the armor in the sense of that sense of well-being, inner peace. And then when unhappiness arises, all you need to do is check the afflictions that is responsible. Because 100%, if that peace of mind is gone, it's an affliction. It's an affliction in your mind. So all you need to do is search for it. Which one is it that's bothering me? Because if this inner peace is gone, it cannot, there's no other way. Otherwise, your inner peace would be there. That's why we speak about the afflictive emotions as that which destroys our inner peace. That's it. If we didn't have the afflictions, we'd have that state that Bee so beautifully described. We'd have it all the time, right? It's almost like you're riding on the wave of samsara. You're not sinking in samsara. You're kind of on top of it. Yeah, it's still around you. You still see it, but it's almost like you've gone beyond it. That is the state I believe is meant here. Try and seek that, right? Keep that joyful mind, and you may need to use, you may just have to go to a teaching and just sit there, but no, there are other methods. For instance, to think of the fact that we have this precious human existence. I mean, so many opportunities, so much good in our life. I really like the saying, count your blessings, right? All the good stuff in our life. There's so much good in our life. And oftentimes when we're unhappy, we feel like I didn't get this, I didn't get that, I want this, I want that. We put so much pressure on ourselves on how we should be. I mean, this day and age doesn't support the absence of pressure, basically. I mean, there's so much pressure from society. You should have this kind of relationship, should have this much money, should have these many possessions, should have this education, should be seen by other people in this way. There's so much pressure. Just let it go, right? So to find a way to let it go and connect with that sense of inner peace and dissatisfaction, and try as much as you can again and again to go back to it, right? And then when I said this in a different class, someone said, well, sometimes I'm depressed. Yes, of course. There are certain, there could be physically caused by physical, maybe chemicals in the body missing. So, and maybe in those situations, it's necessary to replace the chemicals. That's a different situation here if it's physically caused. But often enough, it is caused by mental thoughts that we have repetitively, thoughts we have time and again. And I'm not saying we're doing something wrong if we're not always happy. Don't put that pressure on yourself. That would be, again, a new kind of, I need to be happy and joyful now. I'm not a good practitioner. Oh my God. Right? No. That's the wrong approach. I don't know how to put it into words. Allow for it to naturally arise. Okay, allow for it. So it's this kind of just letting go just letting go. And I think most of you know this feeling. So check what caused it, what helped it, what was it, and then possibly see whether you can create these circumstances again in that dharmic sense. Okay, if anyone has a question on that, because I've struggled with explaining this in certain situations, in the sense that, yeah, some people had a hard time with it. So please, if you have any question or any disagreement, whatever it is, please.
Can I share another thing?
Yes, please.
This past week, I had been really stuck on a certain feeling of anger.
Okay.
I was just angry. It wasn't like the kind of anger where I want to break something, but it was low grade, and I watch my mind. I know it is there, and I use all the different line of reasoning that I know to try to diffuse it, but it's just stuck. I feel. But interestingly, as I was sharing with you my experience with this 35 confessional Buddha and their brief moment of joy, afterward, I realized that the stuckness was gone. Just by telling that story. And for me, lately, I find that it's been more helpful for me, personally speaking, to remind myself of, you know, how we talk about the two purity in the aspect of emptiness. There's the true purity, and then there's the purity of being purified or afflictive, adventitious stain. So it is that aspect of the natural purity that allow us to be able to purify. And His Holiness has this example in this book. He say, well, if you take a table that is already clean and you pour some dirt on it, you can clean it because the table was clean to start with. So thinking about, reflecting on that, it's been helpful for me to diffuse a lot of. And when I was saying about how our natural state is joyous and blissful, that's what I was thinking about, that natural purity.
Very good. Well, you found a means to do so.
Sorry.
Yes, yes.
Sorry.
Of course.
We didn't pay attention for the time.
Yes.
So
Okay. Yes.
Do you would like to answer B and then to do the meditation, or to answer B next time that we will meet together?
I would like to do some meditation. So allow me to I'm just going to wrap it up. So I think B gave one example and it works for her and maybe for others as well. I think it's a beautiful way to just connect with that inner purity, right? Become aware of how all our afflictions are adventitious and so forth. That is definitely a good way to think about it. And if we have, well, strong anger, and anger is a very powerful, out of my own experience, I can say that it's a very powerful destroyer or destructive force of our happiness and that kind of joy here. So of course, then maybe just to observe the anger, just focus on the anger as a means to reduce so many different ways. But that's why we study the Dharma. There's so many techniques and we need to try them out, and we'll probably find something we find beneficial. Okay. So anyway, to just wrap it up, what we mainly talked about today was, first of all, not forgetting about emptiness, understanding that all the teachings are directly or indirectly meant to serve as an antidote to our misperception. And in that way, of course, emptiness, or an understanding of emptiness, is such an antidote. Secondly, of the two witnesses, yeah, people may tell us we are advancing in our Dharma practice, etc. So focus mainly, that is one witness, but we are our best witness. So important to check, be mindful, and not to put too much pressure on us to be a good Dharma practitioner, because just new pressure. And then thirdly, of course, to connect with, if we can, connect with this peaceful, calm mind, just letting go, just connecting, as B says, with this natural, clear mind that we all have, that has the capacity to become, well, an enlightened mind. in whichever way we find that peace, and to return to that as often as we can, because that's so helpful for our Dharma practice. All right, so having said this, let's do some meditation. Okay. And we'll start again, just letting go, just to focus the mind on the breath, letting go of any disruptive thoughts, uptight thoughts. Just breathe. So then let's remember that all the teachings the Buddha gave, all the different methods to transform our mind, are directly or indirectly an antidote to our root misperception. And let's therefore be aware of that fact. And make emptiness a greater part of our life. To develop this greater self-awareness of how, for instance, we have a sense how words, names can be old-fashioned. How clothing can be fashionable or not. Or our strong sense of identity, our strong sense of being male, female. Having a certain nationality. And so forth. But let's also become a good witness to our Dharma practice. To be more mindful of our own thoughts, our afflictions, or their absence. To not judge ourselves, but just observe. To not put pressure on ourselves, but know we can improve. We all have Buddha nature, so we can reduce our negative aspects and improve, strengthen our positive qualities. Our mind in its actual nature is completely pure. Ignorance is not in the nature of our mind. Neither is self-centeredness, nor is self-centeredness or hatred and so forth. Which is a powerful reason for great joy. So let's not allow ourselves to be pulled into the ocean of samsara, but instead ride on its waves the sense of ease, inner peace and satisfaction. Because not only do we have Buddha nature, completely pure and faultless mind, but we have a precious human existence. With so many freedoms and opportunities. Most important, we found a system that teaches us how to connect with our innermost nature by reducing and eventually overcoming our afflictions and their root cause. And we have these wonderful realized masters, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all the other great masters. Who guide us through their example and their words. So let's connect with that sense of gratitude and appreciation. And if we can, inner joy. And now to conclude this short meditation, to make it most effective, let's focus for a few moments single-pointedly on whatever insight we've gained, whatever conclusion we've come to. In that way, internalize it further. And then let's dedicate all the virtuous potential, all the positive potential we've accumulated today. Most importantly, towards our own awakening, may we be able to fully actualize our Buddha nature so that we have greatest benefit, not just to ourselves, but to each and every sentient being. And may this positive potential also become a cause for our great realized masters like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all the other realized lamas to have a long and healthy life. And may this positive potential also help ordinary beings, all the beings around us. May it help them to find that inner peace, that inner calm and inner joy. So that we all refrain from actions controlled by dislike, resentment, and hatred. Instead, I act out of deep concern and affection for others. So with this in mind, let's dedicate together by reciting the prayers. Through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good, all-powerful Jinrezig Denzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. All right, thank you very much. And I'll see you again in 2 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Now.
3
I
weeks.
will publish everything and I will send you.
Great. Thank you, Dalit. All right.
Thank
Please
you.
be well and see you soon.
May I say a word? I would like, I realized that I let my video on. At one point I stood up and I felt that I had to do something while listening, so I cleaned up the table. So there maybe was a lot of movements around. I apologize if it disturbed the thinking of any of you, fellow practitioners, but I know that you receive this with loving kindness, and that's it. So
no problem. I received it with ignorance. I had no idea.
Thank you.
Okay.
Goodbye.
All right.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Geshe Ma.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Dalit.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear friend.
Bye-bye.